All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think now we're going to proceed to the next section. Before that, let me introduce myself. Okay. My name is Mitch Zheng. I'm a research consultant for ITRI, right? Industrial Technology Institute in Taiwan. And that's the largest research over there. But then I'm also a person wear multiple hats. Like for example, I'm also the vice chair of the applications working group in the NextG Alliance. In case you don't know that, please stop by this table. They give you this nice lapel pin for a small fee. And NextG Alliance will tell you that everything about the 9G, it's 6G. Yeah. And as a standard professional and also a consultant, we also need to find out some kind of backup plan in our life. So I just realized I have a unique talent this week, is that I can tell bad jokes. Like for example, okay, let me try this. Yeah, everybody knows I'm from Taiwan, and Taiwan, we know that we are kind of familiar or kind of famous for building a lot of chips. But recently, I just discovered that in Taiwan, we also make pagers. Darn, it still doesn't work. Okay, I need to work on that. I don't want to quit my day job. Yeah. So the topic of our session here is like a standards, like the global standards, global service. But the tricky part is that there's a question mark at the end, right? I think Alex cleverly put it over there because if I ask a question, do you think we need the standards? Everybody say yes, yes, yes. But what kind of standards do we need and how deep the standards should go? That's where the question mark is. And also for the global services, the first thing is that, like a voice or an international roaming, that's a kind of a given. But the problem is that, do we have anything else that we should also focus in the 5G and the post-5G, 6G era, right? And of course, this is a global issue, like global matters. Then, so we need to have some people to actually talk about this. And fortunately today, we assemble a global experts in our panel, and then we can cover that. And I think that because we also need to fit our microphones, and I see, okay, Doug is ready. So maybe just by introducing Doug to the stage, and Javier is also ready. So, and then we also have two more experts from India, Dr. Kuchi, and also from Japan, Dr. Ishizu. So once you got the microphone ready, then I'll welcome you to the stage. And we'll get a show running. Okay. Okay, yeah, sit down, please, yeah. All right, so this is a international and global panel. So maybe I'll ask each panelist to briefly introduce themselves and then try to maybe have a brief opening remark. So I will start with the home team, Doug, right? So representing the United States, we have Doug Castor from InterDigital.
All right.
Okay, Doug.
All right, thank you, Mitch, for that introduction. Yeah, so hello, everyone. I'm Doug Castor. I head up wireless research at InterDigital. So yesterday I was wearing that hat, but today I have the hat on of NextG Alliance. And in NextG Alliance, I have two positions. I'm a co-chair of the steering group and a vice chair of the roadmap working group. And David Young, who was here earlier, he gave a great presentation yesterday, told you a lot about NextG Alliance. I can just recap that a bit. You know, NextG Alliance is focused on building a leadership voice for 6G in North America, bringing industry, academia, and governments together to make sure that our influence and our impact is heard. And we've been putting together materials that are captured on the NextG Alliance website. There's a 6G library, which has a lot of the white papers that we've been generating over the many years, over the last three to 4 years. And we've taken that and brought it into ITU for the framework document and the vision documents, and also was invited to make a presentation at 3GPP as well. So you can find out more about what we do at NextG Alliance or come talk to us if you'd like to learn more about that. I'll just also maybe just give a few, if I have a few minutes for,
yeah.
Okay. Just some considerations that I think are important for the way forward, things to look for in the next couple years. Just thinking what I've been hearing at NextG Alliance. So first of all is we want to make sure that you don't have any fragmentation in the standards, right? So We need to work towards a common global standard for under 3GPP, and despite the geopolitical situation now, I think it's very important, and that's why the alliances like this are important to get together and have discussions, and we formed MOUs to make sure we're talking among ourselves and understanding each other's needs. So that's one thing, and the other is the second point is we want to make sure that we engage the stakeholders for the vertical industries in particular. Yesterday we heard a lot about verticals, and even some today. There was a workshop on the side here which heard a lot about verticals and that. So engaging with those stakeholders, having a bi-directional dialogue to make sure that we're hearing each other and can identify the needs. I think that's another important area to focus on going forward. And then the last thing that I'll bring up, and just kind of borrowing from what how it's been coined in 3GPP is day one priorities. We've done a lot of work over the last couple years, coming up with pages of use cases and talked about a lot of various technologies. But we need to focus, because we got to be careful we don't bite off more than we can chew. So this is again why I think these regional discussions become very important to make sure that we can align on what we want to go after in 3GPP to make things most efficient towards 2030. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Doug. And then the reason I try to keep our panelists have a brief opening remarks is because we can save enough time at the end, because I know a lot of people are itching for questions, right? So I want to make sure that you got enough time for that. And next, let's fly to East. So let's welcome Mr. Javier Abbas. He's with SNSJU, and then he can share some view from Europe.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Alex, for the invitation to come to this event and provide the vision that we have in Europe of this transition to 6G. The SNS means Smart Networks and Services, so it's really we try to avoid using the word 6G because I think it in a way reduces a little bit the complexity of the discussion that we are basically facing. And joint undertaking, it means a public-private partnership. So I think it's one of the main differences that maybe of what we are trying to implement in Europe is the strong collaboration with the private sector. So I run the program, the SNSJU program, and we are in the third year of the program, and we have a pipeline with 80 projects right now. We have invested more than 500 million euros so far. Out of these 80 projects, we cover almost everything, so all the different technologies. We also have a stream dedicated to experimental platforms and infrastructures, and we have also a stream dedicated specifically to work with verticals. And I think what trying to just to open up on the main challenges that we face, at least from the European perspective, and I think it has been repeated over this couple of days that the concept of partners and allies, and I think this is what we represent probably in this panel today, is that this transition, I think, is going to require much more collaboration than in the previous transitions. I think what is at stake here is it's much broader. I think the digital economy that is being shaped and that is probably represented by this vision of the combination of the physical and the cyber world is going to grow at 3 or 4 times the pace at which the traditional economy is growing, and probably is going to represent in a few years' time 1/3 of the overall economy. So I think there is a big kind of activity at stake here, and how we collaborate and how we split the value that is going to be created, I think, is fundamental. So in the SNSJU, we have 4 problems to solve, or 4 challenges to address. The first one is related with doing basic research and making sure that there is scientific excellence behind our projects. That is very important. But that means nothing if you don't follow the rest of the activities in the process. The second one is standardization, how we bring that innovation into standards, and I think it has been explained here very well in the past couple of days. It's a political process mostly, and it requires a lot of collaboration and leverage of different alliances. And I think we are very happy to explore possibilities to do that. The third one is how to, once that technologies have been standardized, how they are deployed. And I think this is maybe out of the last couple of days, maybe this is the point in which I missed a little bit more of the discussion. Okay, so I think, especially because otherwise it felt, for me, relatively US-centric, the whole discussion, and there is a big conversation on how we are going to expand these technologies around the world, and there are many countries around the world in which this is not going to be so easy. So I think the issue of how to finance the infrastructure deployment is going to be very relevant. We have, in Europe, we are lucky because we have available funds that can support that, but in many other regions, I would say that this is the key aspect to tackle if you want to make sure that you are successful. Other, let's say, competitors are much more successful in financing the infrastructure deployment, although maybe it's not technologically as developed as other alternatives. And the fourth one is, it's been mentioned here many times, is the collaboration with the verticals, and how we make sure that the industries that are supposed to benefit from these new technologies really understand what it means for them. So what we are trying to do, traditionally, this process of these 4 challenges were managed sequentially. What we are trying to do now is to manage them in parallel.
Okay, great.
And we can explain to you what we are doing in the process later.
Okay, we're looking forward to that. Yeah, there's because we understand like the standard community. Actually, I started a long time ago, since 2G era, and then I've noticed that there's a different kind of philosophy behind that. In Europe, it's pretty much more like a rigid, because there are so many countries that want to work together, so they are used to this kind of agreement first before they do that. But on the other hand, in the US, we actually focus on innovation, so I really get into almost a competition since day one, right? And then, in case you don't notice that in the SNSJU, there's a famous project in Europe right now. It's called the Hexa X2. It's actually managed by the...
Yes, this is a flagship project.
Yeah, the project, yeah. So,
but I have to say that we don't only represent the European Union. So we have associated countries. For example, the UK is there, Switzerland, Norway, Turkey, so many others that I think they realize that in this next phase, not even the biggest country, at least in our part of the world, has enough scale to be meaningful in this transition. I would like to also have this level of collaboration with the US. Currently we have, out of the 80 projects that I have mentioned, we have 3 of international collaboration. One is with the US, one is with Japan, and one is with South Korea.
Okay, by the way, Javier, don't drain your battery at once. Okay, we still need to have a session about 30 minutes ago, right? So I'll get back to you on this part. But then let's travel further east, right? In case you haven't noticed that actually in India, the 6G actually kick off in India as well, because now we have a broad 6G, right, forum over there, and then we're glad to have Dr. Kuchi to present that forum and share some lights about the standards and whatever stuff happen in that part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Bharat 6G Alliance, Bharat in that the word stands for India, as you know. Actually, the name of India is not India, it's Bharat. So please recognize that. That's the real name of India. So for the Western world, it's India. Anyway, so Bharat 6G Alliance, it's the apex body that advises the government of India on all matters related to IMT 2030 and 6G. It's a society that includes industry, academia, and the government as well. The alliance has been very active. We have signed MOUs with, of course, NextG Alliance, the first one we have signed. We're very happy about that. And there have been MOUs with several other organizations. Personally, I'm a founding member of this alliance, and I also wear the hat of being a working group chair, because we have very few people. We wear multiple hats at different times, like you do. So I'm handling the technology work group of our alliance. Just to give you a perspective on what's different about Indian geography with respect to standards and requirements, is that Indian geography and the way population is distributed and the way internet access is delivered is substantially different from the many other countries sitting here. Substantially different. I can get into the details during the conversation. So because of this difference, the requirements on the technology tend to be very different. We tried to project this early on in the 5G standards phase. We tried our best. We didn't, but I don't believe we succeeded in getting this through to the fullest extent. So hopefully we can resolve these different requirements and maybe going forward into IMT 2030.
Great. Yeah, I think when we are talking about over the past 2 days, we're thinking about how do we ensure that 6G can be successful, right? And then of course, the first thing we need to achieve is that how do we ensure 5G is also successful, right? Because we're going to go to 6G, not just jump over there. Eventually, we'll kind of these two passes, evolution path and also innovation path. But evolution path, of course, is a more sound way to do that, right? And then I think India, right now, not only that we have standard activities over there, it's also there's a big emerging market that actually draw a lot of people's attention these days, right? So that's we're watching closely with their development. Okay, thank you, Gucci. And then now we actually go further north, not further west, further east. Then now go to Japan, right? Japan, of course, like when we talk about technologies, and nobody can just say, okay, rule out what's the achievement in Japan. And we're glad to have Dr. Ishizu with NICT to share some light with us about how the activities over there and then in Japan. So maybe you can introduce yourself first and then share some light with it.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here as one of the pieces of Global. And my name is Kentaro Ishizu. I'm from NICT. NICT, just in case, is a National Institute of Information and Communication Technology in Japan. And we are very close to the government, and we are basically a research organization with more than 700 scientists. But at the same time, we are funding agencies, so we got a huge budget from the government and delegate to academia and industry to tackle more than 70 projects. So we're getting a lot of research achievements, but usually researchers would like to do what they want to do. Of course, they have a vision, but we need a clear vision, clear use cases to integrate the research achievements. So that's why my team is looking at all the activities and try to have the common vision and make it real services. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm actually in charge of the white paper published by NICT and updating annually. And what is difficult is to have a good framework, because sooner or later we cannot resolve very complicated social issues by network systems only. We need to integrate many systems, so we need a good architecture, good platform. So what is that? So that's what we are really thinking about. So maybe we're going to discuss this kind of thing. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And also, I know that this has actually become the whole world now is a kind of global thing. So you might want to get a chance to travel to Japan a lot of times. But just in case like you got invited as a VIP in some dinner, and then people ask you that, what do you like to drink? The phrase is, Daiginjo onegai shimasu. Daiginjo onegai shimasu. Daiginjo is a top-grade sake, right? The top rate sake on that one. So make sure that it works, okay? And now to go back to this, our real subject, right? It's like a standardization and the global services. Okay, so when we talk about standardization, then especially in the 5G, 6G era, we always think about ITU, we always think about 3GPP. Now the question is that the 3GPP has been there for many, many years, and then now it's kind of migrating from the different releases to cover the future needs. So the question, let's probably focus on standard first, and then next we talk about service, right? In the standards, do you think that the standard is good enough now, or what kind of expectation do you have with standards? So maybe Doug, I'll pick you first to think about that.
Is the standards good enough now? Well, I think maybe it's helpful to look at what's happening in 3GPP today, right? And release 19, release 20, and now there's a lot of focus on how do we make 5G commercially successful, right?
Yep.
And even more successful, right? And this is 3GPP is looking at MIMO enhancements, mobility enhancements, network energy savings. Reminds me of what Misha was mentioning the other day. Kind of more in the P&L, maybe more focused on how do we make the L, more palatable for the operators, right? And I think that's probably what is most important for the 5G standards for in the work items. At the same time, there's 3GPP has announced they're working on release 19, release 20 is the bridge to 6G. So that's why that becomes a foundation. But there's also a lot of study items looking at integrated communications and sensing and AI/ML, right? And these are, I think, some of the key foundational technologies that will be important for 6G as well. So there's it's a bit of a mix right now.
Okay.
Okay.
And anybody want to continue? Okay.
Thank you. So our focus has been in the last 12 months or so contribution to ITU Working Party 5D, IMT 2030 vision document, which that is the framework document, and now we're looking at the requirements. So we're doing a lot of internal studies on what these requirements should be, and how the standards will be developed to meet these requirements. So a lot of our work has been geared towards that. We understand that 3GPP has done these release 18, 19 enhancements, but they're all good, but then ultimately, as a delivery, IMT 2030 performance targets have to be met. That's our focus right now.
Okay. So how about Japan? Because we also have a very solid standard development over there.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the global standards?
Yes, actually, in Japan, we have a consortium, and everybody are discussing what is the KPI and what is the use cases of the future mobile systems. And actually, a lot of features are going to be covered, but I believe we need some, yes, the 3GPP is okay, but maybe we need some other systems, like Wi-Fi or other radio systems, and also we have a lot of other supporting systems, including wired network systems. So we need some vision, some maybe standardization is required because things are not very easy. So if we start to think about such things, maybe we need to think about ecosystem also. Maybe we need to think about habits of each country. Maybe culture is different. So we really need to seriously think about the whole system, because if we tend to think about the individual standards only, but we need to think about for the system and imagine what is going to be the real problems, and together with them we need to go.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking recently.
Thank you. And Javier is a
Yeah.
3GPP, right? At sea, that's the home of the standards.
Yeah, maybe just to add two points on what my colleagues have explained. In Europe, in addition to thinking of KPIs at the standard level, we also want to look at KVIs,
KVIs.
value indicators, because I think it's an important conversation to have, given that I think there are very conflicting requirements in the way we are designing our systems into the future.
Okay.
I think maybe sustainability and power consumption is an obvious one, but there are many others that we could bring to the table. And I think we have to open this discussion as soon as possible, because in a way it will affect the type of society that we are going to create in 20, 30 years down the road. If we had this same symposium in Europe, all the time that you have dedicated here to talk about, for example, defense, which it's something that is a non-discussion in Europe from the 6G perspective, it would have been dedicated to sustainability and other aspects of that data privacy or this type of things. I'm just trying to say that we have very different realities around the world when we look at the same, let's say, concept, especially if you try to approach it with a global perspective. So there are different angles that we can touch. That is one comment. And the second comment is that the current thinking of the governance of the process, the 3GPP governance, right now it's a process that is dominated by very few players. Okay, and as it's a fact. So I'm not saying that it's good or bad. It is what it is. What I think is that if we want to incorporate other vertical sectors, if we want to make 6G part of basically the fabric of our society, I think we are going to need to think how to incorporate a long tail, a much longer group of stakeholders. We in our program have a KPI that is, for example, the number of SMEs that participate in our research projects. Okay. In my case, it's 20%. So I have to dedicate 20% of all the bandwidth, resources, everything to SMEs. I think something similar should be, I think, considered somehow for the 3GPP processes.
Thank you. Yeah, because our theme actually covered two parts, so I think we have a round of the focus on the standards. So maybe let's quickly jump to the second part, which is global services, right? In my opening remark, we talk about that by default, we need to have communication services, right? All the phone, who people want to communicate, they can go to the phone and then they can dial and they can roam into every part of that. That's kind of given. The challenge is, other than this, what would you have in mind that what kind of service maybe? Service for 6G, and which can be a global service. Do you have any thoughts? Maybe Doug?
Yeah, sure, I can jump in. Well, I mean, I guess, first of all, I would say services are a really important part of our thought process towards 6G, because this is really where we can add more value to this ecosystem, right? And if you look at the evolution of the cellular system from voice to data to supporting video to machines, and we just, we continue to add the fundamental features that enable those services, right? So I think it's, I think it's we should recognize that we should look for what, as we survey these verticals, we should look for what is the common thread of needs so that we can enable these new services. And what I have in mind as those common areas as if you look at what ITU has pointed out, right, in the framework document, they talk about going beyond communications, right, and these are the new services when it comes to sensing, right, and Peter Vetter yesterday in his keynote talked about how we use sensing will enable digital twins, right, and AI/ML, is another, key enabler of these new services. Okay.
So who wants to be next? Because when you are after people start presenting, you got more limited choices, right? So who wants to be next? Okay.
So the situation in India is very different. The largest 4G expansion has happened during COVID. Okay. So a large percentage of the population got internet through their mobile phones. This is the first observation. Second is that most people don't have wired internet at home. It's very little, almost negligible. So fiber to the home is really not a thing. So a cell phone is the primary means of broadband access. And this has not covered with the highest possible speeds, what you call 4G or 5G here. I think less than 50% of the population has access to such speeds. So we're talking about 900 million plus people living in rural areas, and about 400 million above people living in suburban and so-called urban areas. So it's a very curious mix, because the urban population, there are a lot of affluent people. They expect services something similar to what's available in the United States. Well, there is the other extreme. There are 900 million plus people, more or less uniformly distributed within the geography, and there is no fiber access to most of the geography. Fiber access is available, there is a fiber drop, then 5-10 kilometers, there is no fiber. So it's a very different geography, different needs. We have to solve enhanced mobile broadband and home internet access first. Then we leverage the rest of the new things coming along. Yeah.
Great. I'm doing a little bit of time check, and I promise I'm going to leave time for everybody on the floor to ask questions. So, well, Javier and Izumi-san, one pick for each one of you. What would be your the global service pick? So, okay, Javier.
First of all, congratulations, because I read the white paper that you have published on use cases. It's really, really good. I recommend that if you have not read it, they have a breakdown of multiple vertical sectors with a very good analysis of what they can do with the technology today, in the future, both from the telecom and from the sector perspective. On that front, I think whenever there are humans involved, I think, in my opinion, it's going to be complicated to have global services as we imagine them. So something that is plain vanilla for everybody, because there are many regional differences that. But I think when we move into the world of machines or services that are going to be non-linearly related with humans, I think we can probably identify some things there. We are looking at, for example, everything that is the combination of context windows with agents, with LLM models all together. I think that could be, something interesting from a global perspective, in my opinion. But
that's great. Yeah, that's great.
But I have, by the way, I don't think we all have a clue of what is going to happen in 10 years' time.
Yeah, if you want to invest on that, please contact Javier on this. How about you?
Okay, so I'll pick up one of the scenarios in my white paper, and it's a little bit jumping to the future, but we assume a human-type robot, we say avatar robot, and human can remotely jack into the robot and you can stay in the phone, but you can do a lot of things outside. So sometimes maybe we can send the avatar robots to the moon, even to the moon, and maybe instead of the astronauts, maybe the avatar machines can do mining on the moon, or maybe construct some facilities. That's interesting. Maybe somebody will think it's science fiction, but we are seriously thinking about this kind of scenario.
That would be great. Yeah, that can be very helpful, like especially when there are some part of society become dominated by the elderly population, right? There's something there. But I hope that your robot will be better than, I'll be back. All right, so thank you on this part. So now I'd like to open the floor to the audience, because I'm a consultant, so I don't do real work. So I expected Roger, Amitabha, everybody here to help me out with this one. And also I want to put our panelists over here to work, so please, have your questions? All right, Misha.
I have a question, and Etsy.
Hold on a second. We want to make sure people can hear you.
So Etsy had been discussing the role of AI and standards definitions. Is that something you're discussing in your alliances at all? So what's the role of artificial intelligence, generative AI, in defining, standards, capabilities, interfaces, systems, protocols?
Anybody want to take it?
Maybe it's connected with the comment I made on the type of processes that we need, or governance to 3GPP and other SDOs. I think with 6G probably, and this is not a critic at all to what 3GPP is doing. I think is the best possible alternative that we have today. Maybe we should think of what kind of 6GPP we need to incorporate this type of new realities into the definition of standards. I think there is an element of timing as well. So if you do it very early, probably it's complicated. If you do it very late, it's probably not ideal. So there is a time to have this conversation, a timing, but I think it's definitely something that as a collectively, as an industry, we should agree. And this is one of the things in which I think this concept of allies and partners collaboration could be probably most beneficial, in my opinion.
Anybody else? One person's view, another?
Well, I'll just add, I mean, yes, we are speaking of that in NextG Alliance, but I think it's a very, big question that you're asking. So I think we have to just keep chipping away at understanding how AI/ML is going to, impact the standards, impact the services, everything from the physical layer to the service layer. So so there is a white paper on AI/ML, which is just our kind of our first look at that, and then we have a group within our roadmap working group that's discussing AI/ML at this point as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I think okay, go ahead.
This is Don Lemon. So I'm not asking about the role of AI in telecoms. I'm asking about the role of AI defining telecom standards. Very different question. Yeah.
Defining,
Yeah.
using AI to
Yeah.
define the standards.
Yeah. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
That,
Will it change the picture?
that changes the picture.
Yeah, it's a very different question.
Yeah, but I think, like I said, it's very difficult that we have any more discussions today that without mentioning anything about AI. But on the other hand, should we let AI to dictate what we are going forward in the future? Remember that even like from the generative AI, my viewpoint is it's still based on the existing informations. But now we are actually doing forward thinking, forward leaping. So do we allow just AI and to help us dictating the future activities, or we should just trust ourselves? So we use AI as a tool to do that. So I don't know if Gucci or Ichizu has different view on this.
No remarks.
Okay. So is that kind of where you're heading, Misha? Or we can talk later. Okay, we can always talk later because we'll be here.
If you think about it today, the meetings of 3BP are still physical. So it's a bit, to me, counterintuitive that we are designing the future of the digital world still with physical meetings that take place in different parts of the world with a very cumbersome process. So I think there is a lot of room to improve the process.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and also I'd also like to remind people here, because in 6G we talk about JCAS, ISAC, and we talk about RIS, and we talk about AI native network. But please be aware of that AI native network may not subject for standardization. That's something that probably people start looking into that. And now we have Amitabha.
Yeah, so this is for Kiran. And what you said, 900 million people, it is hard to cover. So are you looking at NTN, both HAPS and LEOs, to cover this 900 million? Because it is hard to draw fiber to each community, right? It is expensive. Thank you.
No, our view is not covering these people with NTN satellites. No, this is terrestrial. Well, these are 900 human beings that they have their needs, just like you and me. They have to be covered. Mm-hmm. That's it. And they're not second citizens. They just happen to be in rural areas, so their needs are same as the urban population. They aspire for same connectivity.
You can't. You can use HAPS to have similar connectivity, or
that's a complementary service. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but actually, question back to you, Amitabha. Do you see any kind of successful HAP operations today? It's a very challenging deployment environment, I would say.
No, I think Japan is very high on HAPS deployment.
HAPS?
Yes, there is such a plan. I heard about that. Yeah, and they are testing. So because we need such a technology, because we have
Tsunamis.
Yeah, tsunamis and mountains, and it's very unrealistic to deploy base stations anywhere. So maybe if we have MTN technology, MTN system, we can cover whole the national land. So
yeah, but for India, if you can draw fiber, that's fine, but that is expensive. So that's the reason. Do you have a complementary kind of service.
If I may add. Yeah, so India has a very large fiber rollout plan, but the fiber goes till a drop point. After that, 5-10 kilometers, when you convert into miles, is uncovered. There's no fiber drop anymore. And taking fiber to every place is very hard. So you have to create very different network topology, which doesn't exist today. We have
Fixed
a mid-band
wireless
5G.
access, the last mile you can cover using FWA.
Yeah, whatever it is, we need to cover 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers from a single fiber drop. That's a problem statement. I will leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay, right, Roger.
Actually, I was going to camp on that just a little bit more. Question back to Kiran. You mentioned that your work to influence the 5G standard was not as successful as you wanted it to be. Give us some examples of how the standard might change or would be more consistent with the needs of a country with the demographics and the geographic distribution like India, because the numbers you cited were a bit of a surprise to me. I understood some of the issues, but the 900 million non-urban populace that population that's different than the distribution in a lot of other places in the world. And so what would the standard look like in 6G if it was different?
It starts with defining the evaluation methodologies in ITU, where you take this topology into consideration. That is, there's a fiber drop, and then there are these hamlets, and there are 10 kilometers coverage. This is not simulated today. It's just absent for the last 20 years. And this we have not been able to kind of push it through the standards, or maybe the efforts were not done at the right time, I guess. When we entered ITU with this requirement, it was the middle of the ITU phase, so it was a bit late. That we acknowledge. And 3GPP just runs with ITU simulation methodologies and delivers these specifications. So you can't blame them for that, because TPR is defined. So it has to start with the ITU requirements. That's what we focus on right now, to codify these requirements to the extent possible.
Right, it shows final question. Anybody? Final question. If not, then maybe I'll just post something that's a quick answer, right? Like right now, do you think in the standard forums like 3GPP, ITU, whatever, do you think the effort today is too slow, too fast, or about right? Start from you. Too fast, too slow, about right?
I think I made it clear already.
About right? Okay, how about you, Doug?
I think about right.
About right?
ITU is about right. 3GPP has rushed in the past.
Is that right? Okay. How about you, Ishizu-san?
Slow, because things are very going fast.
Okay.
We need the innovation, so
Yeah.
slow.
Right, so thank you very much. Then thank you. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. So thank you for you. This international, great international panel over here. And of course, I think like the discussion won't just stop here, right? So please tune in to our program in the future, and then we'll come back in the future sessions, right? See you, and then thank you very much. Thank you all.